advised.
Welcome to a wet, wild and wonderful South Africa. This is Safari Live. And my name is Brent Leo Smith. I have my fantastic, almost superhuman cameraman on with me today, Brian Joubert. Together we are known as the Killer Bees, and we're hoping that we have been released from hobbling in the tent. Well, our backs are quite bent, from being in the tent for 2 drives, that we are now unleashed into the wilderness, and we're hoping we're going to be able to find you some big cats. So unfortunately, Karula has got a kill down to the south of us, so no sign of her, and we will be getting updates as the morning goes on. She could have of course got it stolen, so she might easily move north. So we're going to do a quick check there, and I'm then going to go ahead towards where the Nkuhuma Pride last were. Tristan, on his way home after drive last night, bumped into a Matimba. What are they doing here again? And that would explain the nervousness of the Nkuhumas over the last while. So he's following up with them down in the southwest. But I'm going to chat to him on the radio shortly and see which way they've gone. Now, of course, there's still a light drizzle. It's not nearly as bad as yesterday. But there might be some more weather moving in, so you might notice we've still got roofs on. You might hear the flapping of canvas on the breeze, and but that's so we can bring you a safari rain or Safari Live, or questions at WildEarthTV. Get hold of us, but without further ado, let's see how Tristan's search for the missing Matimbas is going. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our sunrise safari. My name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Craig, aka the Batman. And yes, we are looking for the Matimbas. We've bumped into them last night. Well, I think it's them. It was a very large male lion, and it looked like Ginger from the Matimba Coalition. And there was another male calling just a little bit further east of him. So I'm going to go and try and see if I can look where their last position was. They did have quite big full bellies, and so I'm hoping that they might still be stationary. So we are going to head up towards Vultures access, that's where they were lying, and see if maybe we can find them. So without further ado, let's see how we go. I haven't seen any tracks for them yet coming down towards the lodge area. I was hoping that we would see them coming this way and maybe lying up on quarantine, but unfortunately no sign of them at this stage. It is still quite dark, so difficult to see tracks at the moment, but we shall persevere. The nice thing is that it hasn't rained too much during the night, so any tracks that they have left behind should be quite clearly visible. Being big, large male lions, they should leave really nice big imprints in the wet, soft roads, and so hopefully we will see their tracks nice and clearly and be able to find them. Now, the only problem is that they weren't too far from our boundary with Simambili, so I'm hoping they didn't cross that way. And it will be interesting if they did go that way, because I know the Birminghams have been on a buffalo kill on Simambili, so it'll be interesting to see if there's been a little clash during the night, or if there's been any movement between those two coalitions. So I'm just checking very carefully all the roads that go off, just to make sure there isn't any tracks that could potentially be visible. But like I say, it's quite difficult at this time of the day, because you've got a very awkward light coming down. It's almost that twilight kind of feel to it, and so it makes it very difficult to actually see the tracks nicely without a bit of light. Just to give me a bit of contrast. Glitch there. So with all this rain around and overcast weather, it's been playing a few problems with our signals, but nothing to worry about. It looks like it's all sorted and we're all back to normal again. So as I was saying, it's kind of like twilighty, and it's a little bit tough at this stage, but the nice thing is that we have soft roads, and male lions on soft roads is a nice tracking experience. But hopefully they haven't gone into Simambili or Buffelshoek. It's right in our northeast western corner. So this is not too far from where I had them. They were lying just up front here. So I'm going to just quickly check there. Now the only other problem is that generally you would go and search in areas where there's water, because at night often lions or leopards or cats in general go and drink in the evenings, but you'll find a situation where now, after all this rain, we've got so much water. Head nod. Okay, let's see if we can roll forward a bit. I'll try and put my... It's a bit out of spotlight distance at the moment. Don't fly away, big owl, because this sure isn't a little owl. There we go. I should have my headlights on it a bit better now. There we go. I think... How's that? That actually... Oh, off it goes. Now that's the biggest owl we get in this area. The Verreaux, or giant eagle owl. Now, I've had some incredibly wonderful sightings of them over the years. I think my favorite has to be in the Okavango Delta. During the wet season, when the delta recedes. Now that sounds counterintuitive, but there was a tiny fat mouse, which is a really tiny mouse species, and it was running around, and we'd spotted the owl on the ground. I couldn't figure out what it was doing. It was doing this. And basically its talons were so big that every time it tried to impale this little mouse, it would run out, and then it would go like this, and then, and the mouse just kept escaping until it managed to get down the hole. It was quite comical. I'm hoping that it hasn't flown too far, so it might be sitting up in one of these bigger trees here. Fortunately, no sign of a giant eagle owl, so might go look for another giant predator. Lion. So, sorry about the signal issues, guys. Like I was saying, it's a little bit overcast and rainy, and those cause a few little problems, so we're just trying to iron them out. It's an early start to the day, so we're getting our tech guys working early this morning, but we found the tracks for at least one of the males, and it was going southwards, so we're just quickly checking and closing around this area here. So we use the road to, basically what we say, close off the block, and so basically that means as the road runs around in a circular fashion, you go around there and you make sure that those tracks for that line haven't crossed anywhere, and then you know that it must be somewhere there. So we're just busy doing our loops to try and see if we can find where this lion has gone. So, Kim from South Carolina, you're asking, where are the Birmingham boys, and is this not their territory? Well, Kim, yes, this is the heart of their territory. So, these male lions that have come in are not welcome here at all. But you must remember that the Matimbas were the males that were dominant here before the Birminghams. And so what happened was, when the Birminghams came in, they pushed these Matimba males further southwards into the central parts of the Sabi Sands, where the Matimbas have been for the last year. And now what's happened is we've had a bit of a movement of coalitions, and I think the cubs from certain prides, in particular the Mangane pride, in the central parts of the Sabi Sands, have started to get a lot bigger, and so they're moving a lot more, and that's meant that the Majingalan coalition is also moving a lot more. And the Majingalans have started coming back into this area, and they started pushing back into the central parts of the Sabi Sands, and they've then pushed those Matimbas back this way, and so the Matimbas have gone up into the Manyeleti, and then now they may be hanging around in this area to see. It's going to be interesting. It could be that these Matimbas have just come into this area to bypass, and that this morning we won't find them. They might be on the other side of the reserve, back into the central parts. They could have gone very far west. It's not to say that they stuck around, but the interesting part is these lions that we saw last night. Like I say, I'm not even 100% sure it is the Matimbas. It looked like them, but it could be wrong. They were vocalizing quite heavily, so if it is them, then they are basically saying that we are here and we are happy to challenge whoever is here. Now, it could be that they are the Birminghams, and in my little rain-covered vehicle last night in the pouring rain that I just got a bit confused, but they looked too big, and VM and I both agreed that they looked slightly larger than what the Birminghams did, and the manes looked very different. They had very dark black in their manes, which Birminghams don't really have. They're a little bit lighter than that, but as I say, I haven't seen the Birminghams in so long. It could very well have been one of them. So far, no tracks that I can see here. Shansan, is that right, Rebecca? Well, Shansan, thank you, Rebecca. You want to know whether the Matimbas would cause the Nkuhuma cubs any problems? Well, yes, they would. If they come across those Nkuhuma cubs, they most certainly would try and get rid of them and try and establish themselves over the Nkuhuma Pride again. So what it would have taken last night is probably the Birminghams to start vocalizing back, and for the Matimbas to realize that there's other males in this area and that they need to be a little bit more careful as to what they're doing. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, but this is the rigours of being a male lion and having a territory. And I was saying yesterday that the Birminghams really have been a little bit untested in the last few months, or in fact in their entire time as a coalition, because they've never really had to go after anybody. They've chased the Matimbas out, but just through sheer numbers. Because remember that the Birmingham boys were 5 when they first arrived. They're now down to 4, and the Matimbas were only 2. So it was just far too big a coalition for the Matimbas to defend themselves. But now that they're down to 4, maybe the Matimbas fancy their chances a little bit more, and the Birminghams really haven't had to fight heavily over anything. So it's going to be interesting to see if somebody does come to challenge how they stand up to the rigours of defending a territory and actually having to go through a fight to defend your area. Just remember, the male lions also, they try and avoid fighting as much as possible. They know that a fight with another male can be a death sentence for them, because ultimately if they get bitten on a leg area and their leg gets broken, or a very bad bite to the spine where the spine can get cracked and broken, then it's almost like a death sentence for them. So they try and roar and urinate and scent mark as much as possible to give a sort of show to the other male lions that they are big and strong and they are confident enough to do that, and that then is potentially enough to deter the other males. But with the Matimbas, I don't think it will be. The Matimbas are big boys, so let's see how it all plays out and how we go. So what I'm doing is I'm just driving along now looking for any tracks. It's going to be quite difficult on roads like this where we've had a lot of traffic, because with the rain it's allowed these roads to compact and the vehicles have all squashed everything down. So what I'm looking for is on the sides of the road, it's a little bit more loosely packed, the soil, and so if a male lion walks there, then in all likelihood we should see nice big signs of their feet on the road. So I'm just checking on the sides as well as in front to see if there's any sort of sign of them, and we're right in the area where the one was calling last night. The other one was just a little bit further east of us. But I see. So Heather, yes, female lions do claim territories, but theirs is a little bit more loose than what the males is. Their territories, they almost have what we call home ranges. So home ranges are loose movements throughout the year, and they typically move according to availability of food. So if there's a high density of buffalo in the Manyeleti Game Reserve to our north at this time of the year, you'll find that the female lions will move into that area to go and hunt that buffalo. As the buffalo then spread out in the winter months and start coming to where we are, then you find they start to move to us. So they have what's termed a home range more than a territory, and are a little bit more sort of allowing of other prides to be in the area than what the males are. The males, if they hear another male, they're going to come and investigate and try to get rid of him because they know it's competition for their females. Whereas with the females, if they're not anywhere nearby, they're not going to really go and attack those others. Alright, so here's going to be a really good place to check for tracks because this goes into Simbambili and the lions often like to walk here. Any signs there, Craig? I also don't see anything, so nothing there. I see the tracks where they came into our side, so I don't know if you can see them here, Craig. Just on my right hand side here. It's going to be a little bit tough, but there you can see in the mud over that area, those are the lion tracks that we were looking for. So these are the male's tracks, and they are from last night. You can see the rain has washed them a little bit. They're not nice and crisp and clear. So those are tracks from last night. They're not very fresh at all. And so we're going to carry on. The tracks that I had on the other side are fresher than what these are. Well, David has raised an interesting point. He wants to know whether the two Matimbas could be after the two Nkuhuma females that have separated. Well, it's very possible, David, especially if one of them has come into an estrus cycle and they've picked up the scent for that estrus cycle. It could be that. Now, I'm not 100% sure where those two females are, so it is very, very possible that they have, and that they are looking for those females. But the last time I heard of those females, they were on Arathusa somewhere, so it's very possible. If they have come into an estrus cycle, you'll find that female lions will mate with different males, even if it's not the territorial dominant male for that area. And the reason why they do that is because that if, let's say, hypothetically, the Matimbas come back into this area, overthrow the Birminghams, then they've mated and they've produce cubs with the successful coalition that's come into the area. And so if the Birminghams stay, you'll find that they'll mate with the Birminghams as well, and then they'll basically confuse all lots of males, and they all think they've mated, and they then all accept the offspring that comes through from there. Alright, so no tracks that I can see going back this way, which is good news for us. It means that hopefully they've stayed inside Djuma. I'm going to go and check, I think, Buffels Hook cut line, just to make sure that they didn't turn and carry on eastwards and go towards where the Nkuhumas were lying last night. So I am going to check the cut line, also just to make sure they haven't crossed north. And if there's nothing there, then we're going to come back to our last track and see if maybe we can do a bit of leg work on foot and track these males down. But isn't it interesting to have male lions around and the dynamics that are happening at the moment? Like I say, it seems like there's been a bit of an upheaval in the dynamics over the last few weeks, with one of the Majingilans dying and the new males right in the south. It seems like things are changing, and it's about time actually. It's been very, very stationary in terms of lion movement over the last year and a half. You know, the Birminghams have been very settled here, the Majingilans very settled in the west, there's Matsapiri males, we're very settled around the Mala area and just south of the Birminghams. So everybody's been very, very settled. So it's going to be interesting now to see how things change as males start to move and get older and members of coalitions start to die. It's going to change the whole balance of everything. And who knows what's on the fringes of us at the moment. We don't know what's in Kruger. There might be some big young coalitions that are on the march and looking for new territory, and they might start arriving as well. So it's going to be interesting times ahead. Alright, so the reason why I haven't gone up to the Buffels Hook cut line just yet is I want to just check one road that cuts straight through the middle, and that's where the tracks were heading. So I'm going to just check there first. If there's nothing there, then up onto the cut line and to check around Sydney's Dam area and see if they haven't gone that way. But I don't think anybody else has picked up any tracks so far. Alright, so we're going to carry on with these tracks and see what we can find. And while we do that, we are not the only ones out here, myself and Brent. We have Tayla with us, so she is in the tent. She's got a little bit of a cold, so she's trying to stay nice and warm, and also she's got a new haircut.
They've banished me to the tent, the boys. They won't let me go out. Can you believe it? They've quarantined the area. What am I going to do? I can't move from here. Well, good morning to all of you. I'm feeling much better. My name is Tayla, and on camera with me this morning is VM. Well, there he is. We were hoping to actually go out and do a bit of a bushwalk, but we were uncertain what the weather was going to be doing. Whether the clouds were rolling in, because there is a bit of a breeze this morning, and it did look dark and a bit weary in the distance, but it seems to be lightening up, which is good news. So hopefully by this afternoon, we'll be back out and walking around again. And it's quite exciting about all of these matimbas. I've never seen them before. I've really only just heard them. But I want to actually take a walk outside. I want to have a look and just see what the weather is actually doing out over here. Let's go and have a look-see. So I hope Tristan manages to pick up on them. And VM and I were hearing lions. I don't know if Tristan told you, we actually could hear lions roaring. And I don't know where it was, but it was sort of that way, somewhere down there. So it definitely sounded like two males roaring away, but we'll have to, of course, wait and see, and hopefully, well, Tristan's got the best idea, and he'll be able to track them. It would have been good if we were on bushwalk, but I think we might get a little sprinkle here and there, which is not, of course, good for the bushwalk backpack, which has just been newly designed, a little bit of a refurbishment. It's looking very fancy, and it's nice and light as well for our Camops gentlemen to carry, because it always was a bit sad that they have to carry something so heavy, rather them than me. Anyway, so what are we going to do today, VM? What do you think?
Look at the silver cluster leaf.
You want to look at the silver cluster leaf, VM? But today we're going to actually it's going to be a VM day here in the tent. We're going to do all the things that VM would like to do today. I feel like it's always us that are sort of deciding what we're going to do. Don't you think we should change it up every now and then? So if you'd... And I have a question to pose to you before we have a look at this beautiful silver cluster leaf tree, is that as you're sitting here and watching, is that you know that we've got the most amazing things in the tent. And we've done a lot of them a couple of times, but perhaps all of you who are watching have got a particular favorite thing that you'd like to see today. So hashtag Safari Live, or send what you would like me to show you, perhaps under the microscope. Maybe there's a skull that you'd like to take a look at. Send them through hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or questions@WildEarthTV. You can pop us an email too, but let's take a closer inspection to the silver cluster leaf. Now, I have to just warn you, I have been having a couple of comms issues, so we'll see if we can hear Rebecca. I did hear the radio go, and I'm not sure if she's talking to me. But this is an incredible tree. And you know what I noticed? When I was in Thorny Bush a couple of weeks ago, or maybe about 3 weeks ago now, it was really amazing. There were some massive silver cluster leaf trees, and you know that there's some really big ones out on quarantine, some of the biggest I've ever seen. But because Thorny Bush had so much rain, I kid you not, the grass is standing this high, like you could walk through it and you completely disappear, is that you could see all their lovely seed pods. And I've only been working up, this is my second year now, almost just over 2 years now that I've been working up in this area. And remember, we had that horrendous drought since 2014. Now, I didn't see any seed pods, not on one silver cluster leaf tree. And all of these pods had fallen off of these big trees that were scattered in the Thorny Bush. So that's just a little bit further northwest of where we are at the moment. And they look very much like a bush willow pod. You know those little red ones? We'll see if we can pick one up and show you. But this one hasn't got any just yet. Now, I just want to do a little communication test with Rebecca. Rebecca, can you talk to me? I just want to see if I can hear you. Oh, amazing. Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, what are we going to do now? So, did we decide as to who was feeding on these? I can't remember. I think Brent said, I'm trying to remember, we were chatting about who has been feasting on all of these silver cluster leaves. Someone has, probably a caterpillar of some sort. Brent will have to remind me as to who it was. He figured it out. But one of my most amazing things, and I don't think I've ever made rope for any of you before, have I? No. I think everybody else on the team has made rope. Now you're going to learn a weakness about me. I hope you're ready. Is that I was a horse rider. And one of the things that you had to do when you were a horse rider is plait. I couldn't. I still can't plait. How embarrassing is that? I used to have to bribe my friends with cool drinks and cupcakes and things like that in order for them to help me. That's very small rope that I'm going to make. I'll make a little rope. We'll try and make a rope. Right, let's see here. Let's use this one. Now, you've got to use the nice young branches because that's where, of course, the Well, you can see the bark is nice and soft. That's too small. We need some long ones. There's so many silver cluster leaf trees, we might have to walk around. Here we go. So I finally found some good ones. We're going to keep searching here. There's a couple of silver cluster leaf trees, so I can stretch it out. And I'm going to do a very poor attempt at trying to make you some rope. But let's go across to Brent now. What a great owl he had earlier. I wonder if he's going to do any more birding this morning.
Well, Tayla, you know, I think it's been you who's eating all the silver cluster leaf around the tent. Now, silver cluster leaf is very good for lots of different things, but mostly it's very high in tannins and can also be used to quell toothache, headaches, those type of things. It doesn't taste very pleasant though. Brian, do you think it was Tayla?
Yeah, probably.
Tayla and VM?
Yeah.
I think VM eats a lot of silver cluster leaf when no one's watching. Oh, it wouldn't go with him being a dispersal male leopard though. Maybe he eats silver cluster leaf to confuse the creatures before he pounces on them. So, my rabbit in the hole, my ace in the sleeve, is gone. So, this morning I saw male leopard tracks on quarantine, and I thought, yes, we're going to really work this area nicely, but unfortunately they crossed south out of our boundary. But of course, for everything that crosses out, something's got to cross in eventually. So I'm going to go check on the Nkuhumas now. Listening to what's happening with the tracking of those Matimbas, there's a very slim chance the Nkuhumas are going to be around. Now, of course, we had that wonderful Verreaux eagle owl this morning, which just pips me higher on the bird competition. But it seems like Tristan's trying to play catch up with two quacks in a tree.
Indeed, Brent Leo Smith, we do have two quacks in a tree. What we've got here is a male and female knob-billed duck, which is the old name, and the new name is a comb duck. So these are known for the big knob on the beak. Now, if you look on the male on the left-hand side there, he's just stretching his wings. You can see that protrusion on his beak there, and that's where they got their name from. So these guys are little intra-Africa migrants, so we see them in our summer months, and then in the winter they migrate slightly north in towards the equator, where it's a little bit warmer and there's a little bit more water that they can then filter feed. The winter months here, unfortunately, there's not enough water for these guys to survive all year round, and so they have to move out a little bit. And it's a pity the sun isn't shining, because they are really very, very beautiful birds. They have this white body, and then they have this really iridescent blue back to them. It makes them very pretty. Now, unfortunately, we do have a bit of bad news as well. The male lions have crossed out. They've gone into Buffelshoek at Sydney's Dam, like we suspected, so they apparently are still, the tracks are still going northwards. I'm just checking along Buffelshoek cut line just to see if maybe they've come back, because ultimately yesterday when Jamie was tracking the Nkuhumas, they walked along a similar route, and maybe those lions have picked up their scent and are going to come back onto the cut line somewhere further ahead and carry on following along. So that's why we're just checking, just to make sure they haven't come back and be 100% certain that they're not still on our area. But it does go that way. So the male leopard went south, the male lions have gone north. Let's hope that Brent is lucky with the females and that they stay where they want to be, or where we want them to be, and on our side. But I would imagine with a bit of vocalizing of male lions last night, they might have pushed further away, which would have been further east. But it'll be a good morning for birds, actually. I think we might do a bit of birding this morning. You'll find most of the birds are going to be sitting all puffed up, trying to stay warm. They'll at least be a little bit more dry than they were yesterday. Ultimately, the rain that's falling today is more mist than anything else. So we don't have too much rain this morning, which is great. It's nice to be dry for a change. So this is roughly where the Nkuhumas came back out. Valdo, you want to know whether we're being bombarded by mosquitoes with all this rain? Well, not yet. I don't think that mosquito larvae have had time to breed up yet, but as soon as we get a bit of sunshine and the rain actually stops falling, then yes, the mosquitoes are going to be horrific. They're going to come out in their numbers and droves, and I'm sure a few staff members are going to be driven mad. I know James has a particular dislike for a mosquito, and so I'm sure he's going to thoroughly enjoy the next couple months where we have lots of them around. But as of yet, not too bad. This colder, rainy weather means the mosquitoes are not out too much, but as soon as it warms up, which it will, and the sun comes out, we're going to get an explosion of mosquitoes, and it's going to become quite something. Now, the camp where we stay, for some reason, has an abnormally high abundance of mosquitoes in the camp. I don't know why. It seems like every room has got some mosquito activity in it, so you've got to be diligent at night and put on what we call peaceful sleep, which is a type of insect repellent, and put on your fans so that the mosquitoes get blown away a little bit. Otherwise, you're going to have a very restless night's sleep. I always like driving along this road. The vista as you look down the road is really, really quite pretty. You get this sort of long rolling sensation as it kind of ebbs and flows through the riverbeds and up onto the ridges. It's quite a pretty road, and it's so straight and long. It kind of looks like it's never ending. It's a very, very cool place to drive. And it's very pretty vistas from up here, especially sunset and sunrise. Whenever you top these crests and you get these beautiful big suns coming over, it's really very, very pretty. Now, unfortunately, we can't show you a sunrise this morning because of all the clouds. But I believe, talking to the guys, that this is the kind of back end of it now. We should start clearing up, and by tomorrow it should be a little bit of sun again, which will be really good. It's nice to have the rain, and it's nice to get some water falling, but when it's long periods and it gets cold like it is now, it's not so pleasant. I prefer much warmer temperatures, and big thunderstorms for me are far more fun. But like I say, this rain has been really good for just to try and break this drought that we're in, because we weren't out of the woods. We were still battling a little bit. The dams are still not full or anywhere near full, and had we not got the rain that we've had over the last 2 weeks, or week should I say, we would have been in serious trouble. We would have had a situation where the dams themselves were going to dry up in early winter, and it would have been very, very tough for the animals out here. At least this rain has now topped up things a little bit, and so we should have enough water to sustain this area through the winter months. And hopefully we get a little bit more just to get the dams nice and full. The growth of vegetation has been really good, so we've got a really nice even layer of grass cover that's grown. The only problem is that most of the grass died just before this rain. It was all going brown and dreary, and so it's not going to be much growth now after the rain. It's going to all kind of be recovering from that rain, from the drought itself, so it's going to be interesting to see. What's also quite amazing is the difference between here and just a few kilometers down the road. We go to Cheetah Plains. It's a vastly different looking place at the moment. The grass there is probably 3 times the length of the grass that we're seeing here, and yes, there are different species of grass that grow at different lengths, but Cheetah Plains seems to have gotten a lot more rain. It all looks very lush and thick down there. All the pans are nice and full, so it looks really quite different to what we're seeing up here. Unfortunately, still no signs of any male lions coming back again. I was hoping to find some tracks. Where we're going to go now, as we get up this hill, is where I had a whole lot of vultures yesterday afternoon, and I presume that's where the Nkuhumas made a kill the day before, or the night before, and so I'm hoping that maybe that activity might have brought these lions back this way, but I don't think so. I think that those male lions have possibly gone into the Manyeleti or right into northern Buffelshoek. Alright, so let's go back to Brent. I believe he's battling a little bit with the lady lions as well, but let's get an update from him.
Well, you see, Tristan, patience is a very important, and we are still going at snail's pace, and we haven't even got to where the lady lions were. Now, in this type of weather, I don't like rushing around and moving too quickly, because you will miss tracks. It's not if. And we do have the tracks of a lovely elephant bull walking down the road in that direction, so I'm hoping that he hasn't got too far. Was that a hyena track, or was that a line track that's got rain on top of it. It is a hyena track and some buffalo tracks. Interesting. Now, I just heard on the radio that those Matimbas are just out of our reach. They're literally right next to the boundary, but just out of sight inside Buffelshoek. But you never know. Cool morning like this, they have not moved far from where they were last night. Now, it's quite interesting what they're up to at the moment. We had a bit of a discussion. Actually had a bit of a discussion with Graham last night about this. He's like, what is it, like two old guys on a pub crawl? No, it's sort of two old guys who escaped from a prisoner of war camp hiding behind enemy lines, because they've got up to the north Skybeds, they've got Birmingham's here, they've got Majingi's in the west, and who knows what's beyond. So I think they're just sneaking around in the peripheries. Oh, and they got chased by, I've forgotten the name of the Southern Coalition. So literally, and they've done well to get to this age, those Matimbas. But I'm afraid that the end is nigh, especially since they are moving around so much into the Manileti, out of the Manileti, into the west, into the central sections of the north. But they always seem to be hanging on the peripheries of the different male lions' territorial boundaries. So it's going to be interesting to see what plays out. Now, I think the Birminghams at the moment are to the east. I think there might be some new challenges coming in from Kruger, and that's just because I'm chatting to some of the other guys who live quite close to the Kruger boundary, and they can hear males roaring constantly, so there could be some challenges coming in. Now, the elephant has moved off to the north of us from the road, but it's not too big a corner to cut. Now, again, obviously one of the bigger problems with all the rain that we've had, even though it hasn't been huge amounts in millimeters, is that the ground is truly soaked. So a lot of the seep lines, which are incredibly important in this ecosystem, will be flowing, and driving through those seep lines, it apart from getting stuck, which is actually the number 2 reason not to drive through seep lines, the number 1 reason is you will affect the water table in the area. Elephant's back. Good elephant. And I'm saying that, so what happens when you drive through a seep line is the weight of the car compacts it, and it actually forms a little dam. So the nice grasses that normally grow along those seep lines below stop growing, and trees start taking over. Now, you could say, but an elephant weighs so much more, and they walk through sea lines. They do, but they don't have a continuous track like a vehicle, and so that's what it means. And it's two sort of continuous tracks forms a wall with that in between part. So that's one of the main reasons we don't drive off-road after lots of rain. There are certain areas, of course, that you can drive off-road even after the amount of rain we've had, but not in this area. So the crest of the hill is to the east of us, and we're on the downward slope, and we don't want to affect any of those seep lines that are taking water down towards the little ravines and river systems. Now, this is a relatively dry area, so those seep lines are incredibly important as you go into the dry season, and they hold decent grass, decent foliage on the bushes and trees that grow on the edge for much longer than the crests in other areas. So a very important area for the grazers, and also if it's good for the grazers, it means it'll bring in the big cats. Okay, so Tristan's going to bird. I think we're going to do everything today. I think it is one of those mornings. Now, quite a comical thing happened early this morning, because we left in the dark, and Brian was on the back and sitting there, and he said, "Oh, I forgot something. I'll be back in a sec." And so we've got a light behind us on the presenters, so when it's dark we actually can't see the cameraman at all. We just see the light, and I think, I can't remember who it was, but someone was walking past and just grabbed the side of the car, or bumped the side of the car. So I assumed Brian had climbed back on the car. So off I drove, And I got halfway across quarantine before I realized Brian wasn't on the back. I had to turn around and go home again. Sorry, Brian. I did come back for you. I did. I know. I have been quite interested in me trying to drive and move the camera at the same time. Okay, so we're quite close to where the last position of those Nkuhumas are. So I'm going even slower now to see if there are any tracks. Now that we're hoping they haven't crossed this road at all. Now, this morning's birding is going to be quite challenging, but you always got the chance of seeing some good species in this type of weather. Species that might not be too out in the open during the hotter mornings. So always good to look around those seep lines I was talking about earlier, and the little marshy areas and pans for some of the more obscure waders. So far, so good. Now there's a bird species that absolutely despises this weather. The hotter, the better for them, the more thermals they can cruise. Let's go find out what it is with Tristan.
Indeed, they look thoroughly miserable this morning, Brent. They are all tucked up and their heads are all in, trying to stay nice and warm, and there is not much movement at all from our vultures this morning. So we've come to where I had all the vultures last night, and they're still here. They wouldn't have flown during the night, especially in these horrible conditions that we've had. As Brent was saying, vultures being such big heavy birds, they really rely on thermals to be able to fly. So for them it's too overcast, too wet, and they're just going to sit and wait until the sun starts to come out and there's a little bit of warmth that they can then get onto those thermals and start flying. Now in that tree there's two different species of vulture. We've got the vulture on the top left, which you can see is quite big and it's got a really robust head, and that is a white-backed vulture. And then the vulture to the right of that is a hooded vulture. So that is a lot smaller, much smaller head, smaller beak. Now when you see a white-backed vulture and in groups together, it's very common that that's just an area where they've been nesting and really not a sign that there's food. But when you see the hooded vulture with the white-backs, that's generally a good sign that there's some sort of food item around. And that's why I reckon this is where the Nkuhumas made a kill, not last night, the night before, because they were here yesterday afternoon. There was a tawny eagle yesterday afternoon as well, and so I would imagine in there somewhere is where they managed to find food. So the vultures now will be just resting. They would have cleaned up whatever was left yesterday, and now they're just waiting for some thermals to come. But you can see, normally you'll see a vulture, the neck is really extended out and it looks like they have a really long neck like a heron does. But today their necks are all in, and the reason why they're doing that is because they lack feathers on their head, and so they get very, very cold. It's like, imagine walking around in cold weather without a shirt on. It's the exact same thing for them. So now when they do, they have this sort of ring of feathers around their neck area called a ruff, and they tuck their head into that area to make it nice and warm and to insulate their heads and neck areas to make it better for them to survive. And they use that same technique when they're really at high altitude so that the blood in their head doesn't freeze. A very little clever system that they've got there. But yeah, there will be not too much movement from these guys over the next little bit. I think they are going to be very stationary. So I think what we're going to do is carry on. I'm going to go not too far from them just to see if there is any sign of anything coming this way. Maybe there's some other scavengers. Maybe we'll get something like a hyena or a jackal or something. It's worth going and having a little look. And if there is food still there, and the fact that they're not down at the moment tends to suggest that there might still be something around keeping them in the trees. Right, so while we go follow up and see if we can find any signs of any predators around where these vultures are, let's go back to Tayla, who I believe has got something under the microscope.
Hello again. Right, now we've been looking at a couple of things, but first I better show you my horrendous rope that I made you. I'm embarrassed as to what has gone on over here. I really don't know how to plait, and I just think I have a problem. Too many people have tried to teach me how to plait, and well, I fail miserably. So it's a very poor attempt. So this is, look at it, look how lovely my rope is. Don't you think it's beautiful? Isn't that just the best rope that you've ever seen in your life? It's lovely. I couldn't even finish it. I was so embarrassed. It's so terrible, but it's okay because I think Jamie could do a good or braid, I suppose you could call it, in the silver class sleep rope. But so if you want rope, now you know that I'm the guide not to come to because I cannot make it. Bracelets and all those things, you'll have to ask Rexon. And right now, thank you for sending through all of your requests. I've had a lot of fun. I was having a little scroll down on Twitter, having a look at everybody that sent in requests is what we were seeing. Probably the most common one that everybody has asked for is the stingless bees. So we have Jerry the skull, Jerry the giraffe skull, as you can see, and James's very nice patchwork that he's done where the bees should be. Now the only problem is that the skull was left outside last night, and it was very chilly, very chilly. So I don't know if these bees are going to come out. So what I've been doing, I've very kindly borrowed VM's torch, and I've just sort of been standing here like this, with the light shining on, of course, the entrance of the bees, waiting for, well, the bees to come out. But they're not warming up. So let me just go down over here and see. I first want to check. Before I even put the microscope on them, we just have to let it warm up. Really, it's like a kettle, and you know, the longer you stand and you stare at it and you watch it, well, then unfortunately, it takes ages. But let's put a microscope on it. Should we have a look? Now you know this takes a lot of practice, right? Where is it? I'm watching the screen just because I want to see if I can get it working. And Brent was actually telling me about a trick that he learned. So it's dark at the moment. Hang on. Now I've got to do this. Now I'm going to bring the light. Oh. Nothing just yet. You can see we're on the microscope. It's very entrance. We're obviously looking at the entrance, but it's very empty at the moment. Let me see if I can angle it differently. You see that? There's nothing inside there yet. I think everybody is so far into the skull for the moment that I don't know if they're going to come up. But we'll keep putting the light on them. But you can see all the little bits of waxes that are deposited. And I think I've got to press the display button to get rid of all of something. My multitasking is not wonderful at the moment. Right, so what we will do is we are going to keep on, right, let's put this back. We're going to keep on, of course, shining this light. Like I said, I'm going to spend the whole day like this until these bees come out, and they will come out. Eventually, they're going to warm up in the light, and I'm sure they're going to be attracted by it too. And then they're going to come out over here. Right. This is very exciting. So I know Tristan and Brent have been working very hard on trying to find lions this morning, and it seems as though Brent has managed to find. Nope, you're staying just now. You'll go there just now, but it seems as though Brent has managed to find the Nkuhuma, so that's not a problem. Should we get rid of my very poor attempt trying to build? Maybe the birds can use it? Maybe the birds will have better luck than me. Here we go, birds. Here's some nesting material for all of you. Or maybe they use it. Right. Brain seems to be all sorted and ready for you now. The Nkuhumas are back. I'm not sure what they're doing. Probably all cuddled up. Let's go take a look.
Well, Taylor, I hope they weren't cuddled up. They literally have not moved a meter. Oh, there we go. That's what we were hoping for. Let's stand up. Let's stretch. Let's go try catch something. No, let's sleep. Now, they literally have not moved a meter and a half from where they were left last night by Tristan. So still lying up in the exact same position. They're looking a little bit more relaxed this morning. Good news, I thought they would be long gone. Obviously, I think they're quite safe down here. tired kitties. Now, it is unusual that they haven't moved overnight and that they are still in the exact same position. I mean, they did eat reasonably well the night before last, but quite strange. Hi, Roger. Roger would like to know, does anyone know the coalition the Nkuhuma Pride descended from? As far as I know, no. The Nkuhuma Pride were found first in Buffelshoek and a place called Brown Ivory Clearing under an Nkuhuma tree, which is a brown ivory tree. So I'm not sure, and that was many, many moons ago, probably well over 10 years ago. So not sure where the Nkuhuma Pride comes from. And one must remember that lion prides are never from one coalition. They are from multiple coalitions. So I'm pretty sure Nkuhumas would have been at some point under the Mapocho, the Matimbas, and those are the only two I know about. There's probably been far more coalitions over the years. Now remember, hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarthTV if you'd like to ask a question, just like Roger just did. Muddy little cubs. Now, of course, you can see still a bit of remnants of the mange, but I think they're getting big enough now that the mange, they should be able to see off the mange, and with all this wet weather, it should make a massive difference as well. As I said, it's quite strange that they're still in the exact same spot. It could be the fact that they're sort of listening to where the other male lions are, deciding which direction to move in case those males come further to the east. So, well, as far as I know, I think it's the Matimbas, but never 100% sure till we see them. I'm waiting for confirmation, but they are at near Sydney's waterhole. So probably as the crow flies, 3.5 kilometers, 4 kilometers from here. Morning, Cheryl in Oregon. Now, Cheryl's wondering, can lionesses tell the difference between male lion calls? Most certainly they can. They are very able to tell the difference between different males and different individual females as well. So at the moment, the roars they want to hear are Birmingham's. The roars they don't want to hear are Matimbas. Or any other lion coalition that are not the Birminghams. Now, interestingly enough, in quite a lot of lion prides, and not much genetic research has been done on these lions in the last while, but in other parts of Africa, it turns out that sometimes up to 50% of the cubs are not born to the coalition males. So there is a possibility that if Amber Eyes and the youngest Nkuhuma are in estrus, they could be sneaking around with an unknown consort on the fringes of the territory. Now, certain male lions that are unable to join big coalitions, this is their strategy for passing on their genetic lineage. So they will be completely nomadic throughout their life, but they will still mate with females from different prides, spreading their genetics. So there is always a possibility that that could be going on. So the most recent study on that was done in Namibia, in Etosha, where it turned out that 49% of the cubs to the larger prides in that area were born to nomadic males who were sneaking around the peripheries. These lions really don't look like they're going anywhere this morning. But we'll give them a chance, because as we know, patience is the best weapon in your arsenal when it comes to seeing incredible things. Sort of hoping they're going to get up and go for a stroll. Bellies are still quite full, and there's lots of water around. Now, Jill is wondering, what is the average size of a territory that Pride may cover? Now, well, Jill, lions have sort of core territory, but much bigger home ranges. So it all depends on seasonal movements of animal, rainfall, all sorts of stuff like that. But your average in this part of South Africa, now you must remember it differs whether you're in a desert or forested area or bushveld. But in this area, your average female Pride will have a core territory of about 3,000 or 4,000 hectares, so 8,000 acres, and a home range of up to 10,000 hectares, 20,000 acres. Now, a male lion coalition will have a core territory of about 20,000 acres, with a home range can range up to 16,000 acres. Now, it all depends, and none of those lines are set in stone, and they can change depending on year and rainfall and prey availability. Hi, Sharon in Illinois. Sharon would like to know, do all lionesses from all prides get along when they meet? No, Sharon, complete the opposite. They'll kill each other if they can. So if the Nkuhumas bumped into the Sticks, they would try to kill the Sticks cubs and the Sticks adults, and vice versa. Now, as territorial as male lions are over their core territories and home ranges, so are lionesses. So even though that the Sticks, the Torchwoods, and the Nkuhumas are all fall under the reign of a single coalition of males, they will battle each other for different territories as well. Doesn't look like much battling is going to be happening this morning though, but quite a lot of catnapping. Oh sure, little one. Oh, cold, strong wind coming in. You can see the leaves start to move around a bit. Boof. Head down. Oh, there's a cub coming in from in front of me, Brian. And where are we going to flop? Right there. Boom. There we go. Lovely lioness pillow. Now there's some stretching and movement around about the cubs, but I think it's more a discomfort thing than an actually we're about to get moving thing. So we're going to sit here with these very fat, very flatulent big cats, and go to Tayla with a blood-sucking killer.
I bet that Brent is just blaming it on the lions. Knowing him, you know, these men that we have in this camp. Now, I'm just teasing, of course. Now, I'm so happy that you've actually managed to find the lions. That's really wonderful. As you know, the Nkuhumas are my favorite pride of lions that I've ever come across. I absolutely love them. And watching them grow has been fantastic over the last 6 months. Now, earlier, I don't know if you remember, Tristan was talking about James's favorite insect, which was in the form of a mosquito. You may have remembered him saying that. And none of us in camp like mosquitoes very much. And of course, with all of this rain that we've had at the moment, it is a slight concern, because with all the stagnant water that's lying around in the puddles, and as you see, a good example is actually around Twin Dams, where we first saw the bullfrogs fighting, how all that grassy area, that's a good area to hold water to. There's a lot of it all around us, which means the mosquitoes are going to be out in full force. Their larvae lives in the water and is carnivorous. It eats everything else. It's a pretty scary thing, and it's a pity I couldn't find a mosquito larvae for you to put under the microscope. But I've got something else for you. Irrelevant. I love that. It's a fantastic name. Now you're wondering if mosquitoes and malaria in particular is a concern around this area. It's a pretty low risk area. Now the problem is that once one person in camp gets malaria, so it's the Anopheles mosquito that carries malaria, once one person gets bitten, all the other mosquitoes, if they were to bite that same now infected person, will then pick up this parasitic virus, which is the biggest problem. And then it spreads like absolute wildfire through camp. So the most important thing is that if by some small chance, like I said, it's a low risk area around here, someone were to get malaria, you need to move them away. You need to quarantine them, get them off the property, send them home so that they can recover. And then the risk of everybody else picking up malaria is almost next to nothing. So that's the way. And malaria is a huge problem in Africa and as well as other places in the world. And before we get to the microscope, I want to tell you a little bit about it. So essentially malaria is a blood disease, and it's caused, like I said, by the Anopheles mosquito. And what happens is that parasite gets into your bloodstream, it festers and starts to multiply in your liver, and then it explodes. Not your liver doesn't explode, but all those parasites shoot out and they start attacking your red blood cells, and this can make you exceptionally ill. There's definitely medication, and if you get treatment soon enough, you'll be fine, nothing wrong. But unfortunately, if you let it fester, eventually it's going to be quite a nasty thing to have. You'll start probably bleeding when you're urinating. You'll have blood in your urine. You're going to probably go into liver failure, and your organs are going to really, really struggle quite a bit. And if it gets to cerebral malaria, then you're in a little bit of trouble. But those are extreme cases. But like I said, it's a massive problem here in Africa. And I was reading statistics actually the other day in a book that I had, and obviously they'd written it around the time of about 2013. So it's a relatively new book that was published. And they were saying that there were over 198 million cases of malaria reported around the world, and out of those, unfortunately, just over 500,000 people ended up passing on because of malaria. But this happens in the more rural areas. So when you're taking prophylactics, or if you're using a mosquito repellent, you're closing your windows at night because the mosquitoes are more active at dusk and at dawn, then you should be okay. The chance of you getting bitten by an Anopheles mosquito is relatively slim. But when you move towards these rural areas where people are still living in informal settlements, for example, I'll speak of Zambia, there was a lot of malaria around. And I've described to you is that you have the national parks, and maybe I'll draw it a little bit later. You have the game management areas, and then you have all the villages. And there's no fences between either of them, as sort of just an imaginary boundary like we have here. And it's very, very sad. One of your staff members go home for their time off, their holiday, go into the villages, and they bring back malaria, and then your whole camp goes down. But it is definitely around. But the amount of coartem that the camp managers and things have on them is unbelievable, because there you just sort of treat it yourself, because if you've got to get into a plane and fly 3 hours if you want to go and see a doctor, and everybody knows the symptoms. I'm really lucky though, very fortunate, touch wood, I haven't had malaria, and I hope that I don't get malaria, because I don't think that would be very nice. But I think Brent holds the record of how many times he's had malaria, but we'll ask him. But now what I want to do is I'd love to go across to the microscope, and I hope my little thing is still sitting there. But I went into VM's room just a couple of minutes ago, and I went and picked a fresh mosquito for all of you. Are you ready to have a look at it? I think we should take a look at it. Right. There it is. It's so tiny. Look at it. Now, you can see it's moving a little bit, and I try to cover it with my books because there's a bit of a breeze in the tent. So you can see it moving around. And it's tiny. It's like almost, its eyes are probably smaller than a pin head. It's really, really tiny. I don't know if I picked it up off of the net, of VM's mosquito net. So here we do sleep under mosquito nets. I actually don't. I haven't got one in my room. I'm a bit silly. But I try to keep my doors and windows and things closed. But it actually had blood in it. And I want to see if we can get another view. I'm just going to try and change the focus onto And the other way. Whoop, we've just squinted your eyes. It's a pity we can't see it too much. I wonder if it isn't still alive. I picked it. It was sitting inside the mosquito net, but it's on. There's the wind. Okay, I think come back to me. That's unfortunate. Doesn't want to. Sneaky. There you go. We'll try and take another look at it. I need to try and get a contraption. I'll find a little clear glass or something that we can just lay it in that will protect it from the wind. But I want to try and see if we can get a closer look. I think that mosquito might be on its absolute last legs. Like I said, the mosquito net did its job well, but not well enough. I think it's
drowning on my blood.
VM says the mosquito is drowning in his blood. He was actually bitten this morning. So obviously, as he'd woken up, it's going to be another great day here at Safari Live, doing a big stretch, and he opened his mosquito net, and that mosquito must have been sitting there waiting. Should we show? Do you still have the bite?
Yeah.
Should we show them? We're going to show you VM's mosquito bite.
Yeah.
Is it going? It's on his arm. So he got zapped by that mosquito. So I wonder if it wasn't one that sort of stunned it, and then it ended up on the floor of his mosquito net. But there was actually still blood inside there. So what we will do at some point, like I said, I want to get a glass so we don't have it blowing around too much. Is that we might even try and make a small incision and watch. VM, do you want to watch your blood come out of a mosquito? Do you want it back? Should we try and put it back in you?
No,
I'm not going to try and put the blood back into VM. We'll let the mosquito have its last meal. But I just think that incredible creature. And this is the first time I've ever seen a mosquito under a microscope too, which is quite wonderful. So we'll have a proper closer look. Okay, that's fantastic. So I want to have a quick look before we go. I want to just see how the stingless bees are doing. So I know you can't see much, but I'm just going to have a quick look. I will see if they're coming out. I've been putting the light on them quite often. There we go. Now it's going to move around a bit because I'm holding it. Nothing yet. Just all the wax. Okay. Right. We're gonna keep trying over here. We'll keep warming up the bees, and hopefully the stingless bees come out for appearance. They've been gone for quite some time. But Tristan has been doing quite a bit of birding this morning, and I wonder if he's caught up to Brent yet.
No, I don't think we've caught up to Brent just yet. I think we're way behind Brent at this stage, so we'll have to up our game and start doing some more birds. But what I thought about doing was coming down and just checking on the Philemon's cutline hyena den. I know the other day James and Herbie had it active on Bushwalk, and I don't think anybody's actually checked the last 3-4 days. So I want to go and have a look there. It is nice conditions for the hyenas to be at the dens. It's cold and dreary, and so they should be out and about around any den area. So if that is active indeed, then maybe we'll be able to get lucky and find some sort of sign of them. So we're going to go and have a look there. Birding wise, there hasn't been too much around. It's been a lot of the European roller sitting all over the place, but other than them, there's been very few interesting birds that I've picked up just yet. But hopefully as it warms up a little bit, so they'll start coming out. I also had a quick look on our southern boundary just for any signs of Karula or the cubs. But I did get an update yesterday that they were on Little Gowrie with a duiker kill, so in all likelihood they're still busy there. But what we do have is some impalas in front of us. So there is a nice big herd of impalas just starting to come out of the thickets and towards the road. Now that one there is a female, and most of the ones in shot there are females. I actually don't see any males at this stage that are not old. They're all young ones from the last year or two, so it looks like just a female grouping at this stage, and they're really looking great condition. After all this rain, there's so much food around for them that they are eating themselves to oblivion, and they're starting to get nice condition. They're looking fat and full, which is great. But what you will notice with them this morning is that their coats look a little bit rough. Now normally when you see impalas, they have these silky shiny coats, but this morning it all looks a little bit rough and kind of puffy. And the reason why they're doing that is exactly the same way birds puff up they're basically trapping air against the body, and that's acting like an insulating layer. So as they're standing there, the air gets trapped, and then their body heat warms the air, and it just keeps them nice and warm in these cold conditions. So that's why they look a little bit puffy this morning. But they are incredibly beautiful animals. Unfortunately, they're so common that people often overlook them and don't spend time appreciating them. But for me, they must be one of the most beautiful antelope species that we have out here. With those beautiful little black markings around the face and the bum area, makes them look very, very pretty. Now you can see the impala in the background is busy feeding off the leaves of the trees. So impala are quite unique in that they are unlike most of the other antelope out here that have a specific food source. So let's say buffalo that are grazers. You'll see the impalas will be able to eat both leaves as well as grass, and so they can survive in the harshest of conditions. They're much like goats in that way, in that they can go into areas that are very devoid of much vegetation, and they will eke out an existence by being able to feed off whatever is there. So they're very efficient at that, and you will find that's why their numbers are so good, is that they find food in harsh environments. And then also, to go with that, their birthing strategy helps with their numbers to increase. So these guys all give birth at once, which means we have multiple young ones all at once, and basically floods the market. So a predator can only catch so many babies before the babies develop enough to start evading the predators. And that's why there's generally a positive growth within impala numbers throughout the years. Alright, ladies, well, we're going to leave you there and carry on towards our hyena den. It's always so nice to see big groups of them. They're such pretty antelope. Good morning, everybody. I'm surprised we didn't see any oxpeckers. Oh, there, actually, speak of the devil. On the male in front of us, there's some oxpeckers busy grooming around his neck. I would have thought we would have seen some more oxpeckers on the herd, but there you can see the oxpecker's busy running its beak through the fur. Look at that. You can see how quickly they can groom through that fur and clean up these antelope. Now look, you can see there you've got a little young one, a little juvenile with the black beak, and then the adult with the red beak. And look at how quickly they run through the fur. Isn't that amazing? So what they're trying to get when they get like that is they're not targeting big, fully engorged ticks. They're looking for those pepper ticks or tick larvae that could be in the coat of this impala, because with the different tick species that we get, there is a one-stage life cycle tick, and they will actually lay their eggs on their host animal. So that's what they're after, and that's why their fine-tooth comb is going through there and getting rid of all of those little larvae. And they reckon these oxpeckers can eat close to 3,000 of those larvae in a day, which is amazing. You can imagine how much help they are for these antelope to keep them nice and clean. Oh, in the ear is not so pleasant. Impala doesn't mind it on the neck. I'd imagine it's like being tickled on the neck, but in the ear, not so nice. Very, very cool. Now, unfortunately, that's not contributing much to my bird list. I have had oxpeckers before, so those are no good for the bird list, but still amazing to watch them moving up and down the impala and grooming them like that. You can actually see how the road is disturbed from all these impalas. Amazing. Alright, so we're going to carry on our hyena quest, and while we do that, let's go across to Brent, who's got some very sleepy cats.
Flat and flatulent cats. Well, I don't think they're going to get moving anytime soon. As you can see, they are very, very stationary, and having moved all of a meter overnight, I doubt we're going to get any luck with them moving during the day today. I think this evening could be very interesting, because they might get up on the hunt while their fat tummies digest for the next few hours during the day. Look how relaxed they look. Well, kitty cats, I think we're going to leave you to snooze and fight off the biting flies and see what other incredible creatures are out in the African bush this morning. Now, I'm still very happy for you to send through any lion questions, hashtag Safari Live, or questions at WildEarthTV. But I think that is about the most movement we're going to see today. A little ear flick. Wow! I managed or tried to negotiate my way out of this thick block of bush. Let's see if Tayla's got any better microscope skills than I do.
Been practicing, I can tell you that, but I don't know how much they've really improved, but we've been working on it. And, well, we're having a look at this mosquito again. Should we take another look under the microscope? Right, let's try this again. I put it in a big container. I'm actually going to cover my hand over it as well. This mosquito does look like it's a little bit live. Now, like I said, I picked it up from the mosquito net. So I don't know if it's just in a food coma at the moment that it's so full. And I was very gentle with it. You can see it's not squashed at all. I picked it up very, very, very carefully and then tried to run with it to the tent. I was lucky it didn't blow away. But it's full. If you look at its abdomen as it twitches its legs slightly, it is completely filled with blood. And this is a female. The male Anopheles mosquitoes do not feed on blood. They are vegetarians. It is the girls who are bloodthirsty and will go after you. But another thing that I noticed, as we've been looking at the various insects, and you know, we sort of find them out in the field, identify them, then we bring them back here. One thing that is amazing is that how many little sensory hairs they have on their bodies. Can you spot all of those hairs? There's one leg that is in focus. You can see them, and then covering the rest of their body too. Now, if it's a ferocious insect that likes to feast upon other insects, normally the hairs that they have on their legs closest to the front, almost like grappling hooks, which they will use to hold onto their prey. But this is not the case with a mosquito. With a mosquito, they are looking for, larger items, big mammals, so that they can feast on their blood. And because they're so tiny, they can really just hide away. I mean, we swat at them with our hands and that sort of thing, but there's no need. So I'm not 100% certain. I'm going to try and do a bit of research on the hairs on the mosquito's legs and see if they are sensory nerves, almost like the sensory nerve that you would sometimes find in the hoopoo's bills and the hardy-dars bills, those types of things that help pick up vibrations. I wonder if that helps, but we'll do a little bit more research on that. But I wonder if it's going to wake up. We'll leave it in here. I put it in a big container. I don't know if it's going to get up and fly away. If it does get up and fly away, I hope it doesn't bite one of us again, because that won't be too fun, will it? Now, speaking about humans picking up malaria, which is not too common in this area, in case you have just joined us, Morgan, you're wondering if animals can pick up malaria. They can't. Luckily for them, they are not affected by malaria as we as humans are. And it's amazing. I don't know if you've ever sat, or you see, we're so lucky. We get to sit out and spend so much time with these different creatures. And I'm going to try and focus this again. I want to try and focus on the head. No, Tayla, don't move it too much. I'm learning. No, yes, there we go. Is that often the animals are covered in mosquitoes, and it must be so annoying, though with also the thousands of ticks that they have on their bodies. I'm trying to do this very gently, but sometimes this microscope doesn't know what gentle is, and the little dial sticks. Let me try of things. Now, Aaron, and speaking about things that mosquitoes get, Aaron, I'm going to get to your question in a moment. If you have a look at the proboscis, now I know it's not 100% in focus, but it is that big black thing that's sort of sticking straight up from its head. Now, that is its mouth part. That's the proboscis, and it has a piercing and a sucking mouth part. So different insects have various mouth parts, which are quite interesting. And maybe if we have a look at some more, we'll find some others, and we'll go into that today. But this is incredible. It's almost like a hypodermic needle. You don't feel it. It pricks you, and the amount of blood that a mosquito is able to drink is unbelievable. I'm not certain at the rate. I don't know if anybody has actually figured out the rate at which mosquitoes can suck up blood, but I think that would be quite an interesting thing to try and find out. Maybe some of you have read that fact asked before. So you can hashtag Safari Live with your answer at how fast do mosquitoes suck up blood. Hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can also put it on an email, questions@WildEarthTV. Now, Aaron, you're wondering specifically if there's anything that eats mosquitoes. Yes, there is. And one of the things that eat it is a crane fly. I'm going to have to Google a picture for you. Should we look at a picture? Let me get one. Okay. So I'm going to find you a fantastic photo of a crane fly, Aaron. That's one of the specialist. What was that? We heard some strange noises around here. And someone's got a hyena. I don't know who's got a hyena, but let's go and see.